The rain hammered against the city streets like thousands of tiny bullets. Cars crawled through traffic. Neon signs reflected across wet asphalt. And at the center of the chaos stood Inspector Raymond Hale. Everyone feared him. Drivers lowered their eyes when he approached. Shop owners whispered his name. Even younger officers straightened their backs when they heard his boots coming, because Raymond Hale never showed mercy. Not to the rich, not to the poor, not to anyone. That night, his mood was worse than usual. A black luxury SUV had sped through a checkpoint near downtown. 3 cameras captured it crossing lanes recklessly. One patrol car even claimed the vehicle ignored an emergency signal. Raymond wanted an arrest. Not tomorrow. Tonight. His officers searched every nearby road until finally they spotted the SUV parked beside a small roadside cafe near the river. Rain poured harder. Inspector Hale stepped out of his patrol vehicle and adjusted his cap slowly. The younger officers followed behind him nervously. Inside the cafe, soft jazz music played through old speakers. A woman sat alone by the window. She looked calm, too calm. Dark coat, leather gloves, silver watch, sharp eyes, and beside her table sat the keys to the black SUV. Raymond approached. "You the owner of that vehicle outside?" The woman looked up slowly. "Yes." No fear in her voice. That irritated him immediately. "You ran a police checkpoint." "I did not." "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to check your facts." The younger officers exchanged glances. Nobody talked to Raymond Hale like that. Nobody. The inspector pulled out a citation pad aggressively. "License." The woman stared at him for a moment before reaching into her coat. She handed over the card carefully. Raymond glanced at the name. Elena Voss. The license looked ordinary. He smirked. "Big car. Expensive clothes. But still thinks rules don't apply. I stopped because your officers pointed guns at the wrong vehicle." The cafe suddenly went quiet. Even the waitress stopped moving. Raymond leaned closer. "You accusing my department of incompetence?" "I'm stating a fact." The inspector laughed loudly. A cruel laugh. "You know what people like you always do?" Elena said nothing. "You think money protects you." He ripped the license directly in half. Then again, tiny pieces fluttered onto the cafe table. The younger officers froze. The waitress gasped softly. Raymond smiled proudly. "Now your car gets impounded too." Still, Elena did not panic. That was the strange part. Most people begged at this point. Some cried, some shouted. But Elena simply reached into another pocket and placed a small red card on the table. Everything changed. Raymond's smile disappeared instantly. His face turned pale. One officer accidentally dropped his flashlight. The cafe became silent except for the sound of rain, because the red card carried only 3 words. Federal Internal Command. Raymond stared at it, then at her, then back again. Impossible. No one from Internal Command traveled alone, and certainly not without warning local police. Elena folded her gloves carefully. "Inspector Hale," she said quietly, "you just destroyed government identification." Raymond swallowed hard. One of the younger officers stepped backward nervously. Another whispered, "Sir?" But Raymond raised a hand to silence him. His confidence had vanished. Completely. What is this?" he asked. Elena tilted her head slightly. "A field audit." The inspector's heartbeat pounded violently. Internal Command had one purpose: corruption investigations. And suddenly every bad decision Raymond ever made rushed through his mind like a flood. Bribes, illegal seizures, threats, disappearing evidence. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot, too dangerous. "You should have identified yourself immediately," Raymond said weakly. Elena looked directly into his eyes. "You should have acted professionally regardless." The words hit harder than a punch. One officer quietly moved toward the door. Nobody wanted to be near this disaster. Raymond tried recovering his authority. "There's obviously been a misunderstanding." "No," Elena replied. "There hasn't." She opened a thin black folder from her bag. Inside were photographs, documents, bank transfers, case numbers. Raymond's breathing slowed, then nearly stopped, Because every page carried his name. The inspector suddenly realized something horrifying. This wasn't random. She came specifically for him. Weeks earlier, anonymous complaints had reached federal offices. Citizens claimed Inspector Hale abused his power repeatedly. Most accusations lacked proof, until one witness delivered something unexpected. Video footage, security recordings, audio files, enough to trigger an investigation. And Elena Voss had volunteered personally, not because she enjoyed paperwork, because Raymond Hale's name meant something to her. 3 years earlier, her younger brother had been arrested during a false narcotics raid. The evidence later vanished. The department blamed clerical mistakes. Her brother lost his scholarship, lost his reputation, lost everything. Months later, he died in a motorcycle crash while working night deliveries to survive. Officially, Raymond Hale never touched that case. Unofficially, his signature appeared everywhere. Elena never forgot it. And tonight was not an accident. It was judgment. The inspector tried speaking again. You can't threaten an officer during active duty. Elena smiled faintly. I'm not threatening you. She leaned closer. I'm documenting you. Outside, more vehicles approached through the rain. Black sedans. No police markings. Raymond's stomach dropped. The younger officers backed away immediately. 2 men exited the first sedan wearing dark coats. Federal agents. Real ones, not local officers pretending to matter. One agent entered the cafe calmly. Inspector Raymond Hale? No answer. The agent continued anyway. You are ordered to surrender your weapon and badge pending federal investigation. The waitress nearly dropped a tray. Customers stared openly now. Raymond looked around desperately. For years, he controlled every room he entered. Now he controlled nothing. You can't do this here, he muttered. Elena stood slowly. Funny, she said. That's exactly what my brother said during your raid. The words sliced through him. Raymond removed his badge with trembling hands. For the first time in 22 years, he looked old, very old. The younger officers avoided eye contact because deep down, they already knew. Everyone knew. They simply feared speaking. The federal agent took the badge carefully. You'll receive formal notice tomorrow morning. Raymond's voice cracked slightly. You set me up. Elena shook her head. No. She looked toward the shattered pieces of her license, still scattered across the table. You expose yourself. The rain outside finally began slowing. But inside the cafe, tension remained heavy. Raymond glanced at the torn license fragments again, then at the red card. That tiny red card destroyed everything. His career, his authority, his reputation, gone within minutes. As agents escorted him toward the exit, customers moved aside silently. Nobody defended him. Nobody protested. One old man near the counter even whispered, "About time." Raymond heard it and lowered his head. Outside, cameras suddenly flashed. Reporters. Someone leaked the operation. Microphones appeared instantly. Inspector Hale, are the corruption allegations true? Did you abuse department funds? Did you falsify arrests? Raymond said nothing. For once in his life, he had no answers. Inside the cafe, Elena remained seated quietly by the window. The waitress approached cautiously. Ma'am, are you really Federal Command? Elena smiled softly. Retired, actually. The waitress blinked. Retired? Elena nodded. I came back for one final investigation. The waitress looked stunned. But then why risk this alone? Elena stared out the rain-covered window. Because monsters grow when good people stay comfortable. The waitress never forgot those words. Not ever. Meanwhile, across the city, news spread rapidly. Corrupt inspector arrested. Federal investigation confirmed. Citizens flooded social media with stories. Old complaints resurfaced. Former victims finally spoke publicly. And one shocking truth emerged again and again. Raymond Hale was never untouchable. People were simply afraid. But fear only survives until someone stands up first. Hours later, Elena walked alone across the Riverside Bridge. The storm had ended. Cold wind moved across the water. She stopped briefly and pulled an old photograph from her pocket. Her younger brother smiled in the picture. Young, hopeful, alive. Elena looked at the skyline quietly. You finally got justice, she whispered. Then she released the photograph into the wind. It disappeared into the night. And for the first time in years, she finally felt peace. But the story didn't end there, because the next morning, investigators opened Inspector Hale's private storage unit. Inside, they found boxes, hundreds of files, illegal cash, confiscated valuables, and something nobody expected, red ID cards, dozens of fake federal identification cards. The entire cafe incident suddenly made horrifying sense. Raymond had spent years impersonating federal authority to intimidate civilians and extort wealthy targets. But he never imagined the real thing would eventually stand before him. And ironically, the fake red cards became the evidence that buried him forever. Weeks later, trials began. Several officers resigned. Others cooperated. The department underwent emergency restructuring, and Elena Voss disappeared quietly from public attention. No interviews, no fame, no celebrations, just silence. But across the city, one story continued spreading from person to person. The inspector tore up her license and laughed, until she pulled out the red ID card. And every time people repeated it, the ending stayed the same. Power can terrify people for years, but one moment of truth can destroy it overnight. 3 days after Inspector Raymond Hale's arrest, the city still buzzed with rumors. Television channels replayed the cafe footage nonstop. Newspapers called it the biggest corruption scandal in a decade. Online videos gained millions of views overnight. But nobody knew the full truth. Not yet, because a federal raid uncovered something far darker than simple corruption. At exactly 7:40 a.m., Elena Voss stood inside a secure evidence room beneath the federal courthouse. Cold fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Metal shelves stretched across the room. Boxes filled every corner. Confiscated evidence. Case files. Old investigations. And in the center sat Raymond Hale's private storage containers. 32 boxes in total. Agent Marcus Reed entered carrying coffee. You should sleep, he said quietly. Elena didn't look up. I'll sleep after this ends. Marcus sighed. That's what you said yesterday. Elena opened another folder carefully. Inside were photographs of luxury watches, jewelry, cash stacks, and handwritten payment records. Thousands of names appeared repeatedly. Business owners, lawyers, judges, even politicians. Marcus leaned closer. Hale wasn't working alone. No, Elena replied. He built a network. A long silence followed. Then Elena froze suddenly. One photograph caught her attention immediately. A silver bracelet. Small emerald stone. Her expression changed instantly. Marcus noticed. What is it? Elena slowly picked up the photo. That bracelet belonged to my mother. Marcus stared at her. You're sure? She wore it every day. The room suddenly felt colder. Because Elena's mother died 11 years earlier during a supposed robbery investigation handled by Raymond Hale himself. Official reports claim thieves stole several valuables from the family home after the funeral. The case was never solved. Now the bracelet appeared inside Hale's evidence collection, which meant only one thing. Raymond Hale had been stealing from victims for years, even from grieving families. Marcus looked disturbed. You think he robbed your house personally? Elena said nothing, but her eyes answered clearly enough. At that exact moment, 2 floors above them, Raymond Hale sat alone inside an interrogation room. No badge, no weapon, no power, just gray walls and silence. For the first time in decades, nobody feared him, and he hated it. An agent entered carrying a thick stack of documents. Your lawyer's delayed. Raymond smirked weakly. Typical. The agent placed photographs across the table one by one. Cash deposits, property deeds, audio transcripts. Then finally, the fake red ID cards. Raymond's jaw tightened immediately. You manufactured federal credentials. The agent said calmly, I confiscated them. Funny, your fingerprints are on the printing equipment too. Raymond leaned back slowly. You people think you already won. The agent remained expressionless. We know he did. That answer hurt more than accusations, because Raymond realized something terrifying. The department wasn't protecting him anymore. No secret calls, no political favors, no disappearing evidence. He had become expendable. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded the sidewalks. Rain clouds still hung over the city. A black SUV stopped near the entrance. A tall man stepped out wearing an expensive charcoal coat. Victor Lang, the city's deputy mayor. Reporters rushed toward him instantly. "Sir, did you know Inspector Hale personally? Are city officials involved? Is there wider corruption?" Victor ignored every question and walked directly inside. Upstairs, Elena watched through a glass window. As Victor entered the building, Marcus frowned. "That man scares me more than Hale." Elena nodded slowly. He should. Victor Lang had survived every political scandal imaginable. Bribery accusations, missing budgets, construction fraud. Yet somehow he always escaped untouched. Smooth smile, perfect speeches, powerful connections. People called him untouchable. But Elena noticed something strange. Victor wasn't acting confident today. He looked nervous, very nervous. Minutes later, Victor entered a private conference room with federal prosecutors. Doors closed, curtains drawn. Marcus crosses arms. "You think he's involved?" Elena answered immediately. "I know he is." "How?" She pulled a thin document from Hale's files. Bank transfers. Millions of dollars routed through shell companies. Every trail eventually led to one place. Lang Development Group. Victor's family corporation. Marcus exhaled sharply. "This is huge." "No," Elena said quietly. "This is war." Meanwhile, inside his interrogation room, Raymond Hale finally received a visitor, Victor Lang. The door closed behind him heavily. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Victor exploded. "You idiot!" Raymond glared at him. "You think yelling helps? You got caught by a retired investigator in a coffee shop." Raymond's face darkened. "She planned this." Victor paced furiously. "You were supposed to destroy evidence months ago." Raymond suddenly stood. "I protected you for years." "And I paid you for years," Victor snapped back. Silence filled the room. Both men realized the same thing simultaneously. Their partnership was collapsing. Fast. Victor lowered his voice carefully. "What exactly does she know?" Raymond hesitated. "Too long." Victor noticed immediately. "That much." Raymond looked away. And for the first time, Victor Lang became afraid. Because Elena Voss wasn't chasing one corrupt inspector anymore. She was pulling apart the entire city. That evening, Elena returned to her apartment for the first time in days. The building overlooked the river. Small, quiet, clean, no luxury, no unnecessary decoration, only discipline. She unlocked the door carefully and froze instantly. Something felt wrong. A single lamp remained on in the kitchen. She never left lights on. Elena stepped inside silently. Her hand moved toward the concealed pistol beneath her coat. Then she heard a voice. You always notice small details. An elderly man emerged slowly from the shadows. Gray beard, dark coat, military posture. Elena relaxed slightly. Director Shaw. The old man smiled faintly. Former federal director Adrian Shaw rarely appeared personally unless situations became dangerous. Very dangerous. "You shouldn't be here," Elena said. "Neither should you." He placed a file on the kitchen table. Thick black folder. Classified stamped across the front. Elena frowned immediately. "What is this?" "Your blind spot." She opened the folder slowly. Inside were photographs dating back nearly 15 years. Young officers, private meetings, secret transfers, and one image froze her completely. Raymond Hale standing beside her own brother, alive, smiling. Elena's hands tightened instantly. "No." Shaw nodded grimly. They knew each other. "That's impossible." "Apparently not." Elena stared at the photo in disbelief. Her brother never mentioned Raymond Hale. Never once. But there they stood together beside a police training range. Friendly, comfortable, connected. A horrible possibility entered her mind. What if my brother wasn't innocent? Shaw remained silent for a moment, then finally spoke. That's what someone wants you to believe. Elena looked up sharply. Meaning? Shaw sat slowly across from her. Your brother was undercover. The room fell silent. Every sound disappeared. Elena barely breathed. What? He was recruited unofficially to investigate departmental corruption. Her pulse pounded violently now. No, that's impossible. Shaw slid another document toward her. Signed federal authorization papers. Her brother's name appeared clearly across the top. Elena's vision blurred slightly. For years she believed he was destroyed by corrupt officers. But now, he had actually been fighting them. Secretly. Alone. He got too close, Shaw said quietly. Hale discovered him? Shaw nodded. 3 weeks before the motorcycle crash. Elena looked up slowly. You think the crash wasn't accidental? Shaw's silence confirmed everything. A cold rage spread across Elena's chest. Not grief, not sadness, something far worse. Because now she understood the truth. Raymond Hale hadn't merely ruined her brother's life. He murdered him. And somewhere inside the city, someone powerful helped cover it up. Shaw leaned forward carefully. Elena, she looked at him. You need to stop thinking like an investigator now. What does that mean? It means they'll come after you next. Outside her apartment window, headlights suddenly appeared across the street. Black sedan, engine running, waiting. Elena noticed immediately. So did Shaw. Neither spoke, but both understood. The hunt had officially begun. The black sedan remained parked across the street for nearly 20 minutes. Engine humming softly. Headlights off. 2 figures sat inside, motionless. Elena watched from behind the apartment curtains without blinking. Director Shaw stood beside her quietly. You recognize them? He asked. No, but they know you. Elena's jaw tightened. That much was obvious. The moment Raymond Hale's arrest connected to Victor Lang, the situation changed completely. This was no longer about corruption. It was about survival. Shaw checked his watch. You can still walk away. Elena almost laughed. After learning my brother was murdered? You can't expose people like Lang without consequences. Elena looked toward the sedan again. I already crossed that line. Down below, the passenger door finally opened. A tall man stepped out slowly. Black umbrella, dark gloves, professional posture. Not police, not federal. Something else. The man looked directly toward Elena's apartment window for one brief second. Then he placed a small envelope beneath a streetlight and returned to the car. Seconds later, the sedan disappeared into the night. Shaw frowned immediately. That's not good. Elena grabbed her coat. I'm checking it. You're not going alone. 2 minutes later, they reached the sidewalk. Rainwater dripped from nearby rooftops. The envelope sat exactly beneath the flickering streetlight. No name, no fingerprints. Elena opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. Her brother, taken the night before his death. He stood beside a silver motorcycle near the harbor docks, and written across the bottom in black ink were 4 chilling words. He found the container. Shaw's expression darkened instantly. Elena, but she already understood. Container, not evidence, not drugs, cargo, smuggling. Her brother hadn't been investigating ordinary corruption. He uncovered something massive, something worth killing for. Shaw took the photo carefully. There's more. Elena pointed toward faint numbers written in the corner. Dock 14 to 11:30 p.m. A meeting location. Tonight. Shaw looked directly at her. It's a trap. Probably. And you still want to go? Elena folded the photograph slowly. Yes. At 11:12 p.m., thick fog rolled across the harbor. Cargo cranes loomed like giant skeletons against the night sky. Dock 14 remained almost completely abandoned. Almost. Elena moved silently between stacked shipping containers. Dark tactical jacket, hair tied back, pistol concealed beneath her coat. Shaw monitored nearby frequencies through an encrypted radio from a parked van several streets away. You see anything? He whispered. Not yet. Water crashed softly against the docks below. Then, Footsteps. Elena slipped behind a container instantly. A man approached through the fog, carrying a flashlight. Mid-30s. Nervous. Warehouse uniform. Not armed. He stopped near Container C. 14, and looked around anxiously. "Elena Voss," he whispered. She emerged cautiously. The man nearly jumped. "Oh, thank God." "Who are you?" "My name's Daniel Mercer. I work port security." "Worked?" "They fired me yesterday." Elena studied him carefully. Fear covered his face. "Real fear. You sent the photograph?" Daniel nodded quickly. "Your brother trusted me." Elena's heartbeat slowed. "You knew him?" "He was investigating shipments through the harbor. Said police were protecting illegal cargo." "What kind of cargo?" Daniel hesitated, then answered softly, "Human trafficking." The words hit like ice water. Elena stared at him. "No, I saw containers myself. Locked from outside. People inside." Her stomach twisted violently. Children, families, immigrants, moved like products. Suddenly everything made horrifying sense. The fake IDs, the bribes, the missing evidence. Raymond Hale wasn't just corrupt. He protected an entire trafficking network. And Victor Lang financed it. Daniel handed Elena a small flash drive. "Your brother copied shipping manifests before he died." Elena took it carefully. "Why wait until now?" Daniel looked terrified. "Because they kill anyone who talks." Before Elena could answer, a loud metallic clang echoed across the docks. Daniel froze instantly. "They found us." Gunshots exploded through the fog. Daniel screamed and collapsed beside the container. Blood spread across his shoulder. "Elena, run!" She pulled her pistol immediately. Two masked men emerged between containers, firing rapidly. Elena returned fire fast. One attacker dropped instantly. The second vanished behind cargo stacks. Shaw's voice burst through the radio. "Multiple vehicles incoming." Headlights suddenly flooded the harbor. Black SUVs raced toward Dock 14. Far too many. Elena grabbed Daniel under the arm. "Move!" Another bullet slammed into metal inches from her head. Sparks flew everywhere. Daniel winced in pain. "They'll kill us both." "Not tonight." They sprinted between containers as engines roared closer. More armed men appeared through the fog. Professional movements. Military precision. This wasn't random hired muscle. These people were trained. Elena fired twice more while dragging Daniel toward an access staircase. Then suddenly, a familiar voice echoed across the harbor. "Elena!" She froze instantly. Victor Lang stepped from the lead SUV, holding a flashlight. Perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect smile. "Even here, even now, you're making this difficult," Victor called calmly. Elena aimed directly at him. "You murdered my brother." Victor sighed almost sadly. "Your brother made unfortunate choices." Rage burned through her instantly. Daniel whispered painfully, "Don't listen to him." Victor continued walking forward slowly. "No one needs to die tonight." "That's rich coming from you." Victor stopped beneath a harbor light. Rain dripped from his expensive coat. "You know what your problem is, Elena?" She said nothing. "You still believe truth matters." His expression hardened suddenly. "But power matters more." The armed men spread outward around the dock, closing in. Elena realized something terrible. They weren't trying to escape exposure anymore. They intended to erase it completely. Victor extended one hand calmly. "Give me the drive." "No, you can't win this." Elena looked around quickly. Too many shooters. Too little cover. Then Daniel whispered something shocking. "The container." She looked at him. "Which one?" "C-14. Elena suddenly understood. The same container from the photograph. Her brother found it. Victor noticed her expression immediately, and for the first time, he looked nervous. Very nervous. "Elena!" Victor warned sharply. "Don't!" But she was already moving. She sprinted toward container C-14 while bullets erupted behind her. Metal screamed as rounds struck nearby walls. Daniel fired one stolen pistol weakly from behind cover. Victor shouted furiously. Stop her. Elena reached the container doors. Heavy industrial lock. No key. No time. She fired twice directly into the chain. The lock shattered. Then she pulled the doors open and instantly froze. Inside the container sat rows of sealed black cases. Weapons, military-grade rifles, explosives, enough firepower for a private army. Elena stared in disbelief. This wasn't human trafficking. It was something far worse. Arms smuggling, international scale. Victor approached slowly through the rain. His calm mask had vanished completely now. You should have walked away, he said coldly. Elena lifted one rifle carefully. 4 in serial numbers. Restricted military issue. Illegal everywhere. Then she noticed another symbol burned into one crate. A red phoenix. Her blood ran cold. She recognized it immediately. Not from police files. From classified federal briefings years ago. The Phoenix Circle. An underground organization linked to assassinations, political destabilization, and covert weapons trafficking across multiple countries. Officially, the group didn't exist. Unofficially, entire governments feared them. Victor saw recognition in her eyes and smiled slowly. Yes, he said softly. Now you finally understand. Sirens suddenly echoed in the distance. Federal units. Shaw had called reinforcements. Victor glanced toward the sound briefly, then back at Elena. This city was only the beginning. Before she could react, smoke grenades exploded across the docks. Visibility vanished instantly. Chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouting. Running footsteps. When the smoke finally cleared minutes later, Victor Lang was gone. So were his men. Only abandoned vehicles remained behind. Federal agents stormed the harbor seconds later. Shaw reached Elena quickly. You all right? She stared at the open weapons container silently, then finally answered, no, because now the investigation had become international, and somewhere in the darkness, Victor Lang was still free. By sunrise, Dock 14 was surrounded by federal vehicles. Floodlights illuminated the harbor. Agents moved rapidly between evidence crates while helicopters circled overhead. Nobody spoke loudly, because everyone understood the same thing. This operation was far bigger than expected. Elena stood near the open container, arms crossed tightly against the cold wind. Rows of confiscated weapons stretched behind her. Military rifles, explosives, encrypted radios. Enough equipment to arm an entire militia. Director Shaw approached holding a tablet. You need to see this. Elena turned toward him. Shaw's expression alone already looked grim. He handed over the tablet silently. A breaking news report filled the screen. City Deputy Mayor Victor Lang missing after federal raids. Another headline appeared beneath it. Multiple officials resign over corruption investigation. Elena scrolled further, then froze. A final article displayed a familiar face. Commissioner Arthur Graves, head of the city police department, and Raymond Hale's longtime mentor. Elena looked up sharply. He resigned 2 hours ago. Shaw nodded and disappeared 30 minutes later. Elena's stomach tightened. They're cleaning house. No, Shaw corrected quietly. They're evacuating. The difference terrified her more, because people only evacuate when something catastrophic is coming. A young federal analyst suddenly hurried toward them. Director Shaw. The analyst looked pale. We decrypted some files from the harbor shipment. Shaw frowned, and the analyst swallowed nervously. There's another container. Elena stepped closer instantly. Where? That's the problem. The analyst tapped the screen rapidly. The shipment manifest lists container X9. So find it. We can't. Shaw narrowed his eyes. What do you mean you can't? The analyst looked shaken. According to port records, container X9 never officially entered the country. Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Elena understood first. It bypassed customs. The analyst nodded slowly. And whatever's inside was important enough to erase every digital trace. Shaw immediately turned serious. Track every security camera near the harbor. We already tried. And The analyst hesitated again. They were remotely wiped. Elena looked toward the river. Victor Lang wasn't simply escaping anymore. He was covering something critical, something dangerous enough to destroy evidence nationwide. Then another realization struck her. My brother found that container. Shaw nodded grimly, and died the next day. A horrible possibility settled over them both. Whatever was inside container X9, it was the real reason he was murdered. Hours later, Elena sat alone inside a temporary federal operations room. Screens covered every wall. Maps, surveillance images, financial records. Yet one thing bothered her more than everything else. Victor Lang's final words. This city was only the beginning. Not the end. The beginning, meaning the operation extended beyond one city, possibly beyond one country. Elena replayed harbor footage repeatedly until finally she noticed something strange. A truck leaving the docks shortly before the gunfight. No license plates, no company markings. But one tiny symbol appeared briefly near the rear door, a red phoenix. Her eyes narrowed immediately. She zoomed closer, then froze, because beneath the symbol sat a number. September 11th, 27. Shaw entered behind her quietly. You found something. Elena pointed at the screen. That number means something. Date. Maybe. She leaned back slowly, then suddenly remembered. 3 years earlier, classified federal reports mentioned a failed operation targeting Phoenix Circle operatives overseas. Operation September 11th, 27. Everyone involved supposedly died. But what if they didn't? Elena accessed archive files quickly. Password barriers appeared instantly. Restricted access. Shaw noticed. You won't get through those normally. Elena looked at him carefully. Can you? The old director remained silent for several seconds, then finally reached into his coat. He placed an old black keycard onto the desk. Retired level Omega clearance. The highest federal authorization. Elena stared at him. You kept this? Shaw's expression darkened slightly. I kept many things. The archive opened slowly. Hundreds of classified files appeared. Then finally, Operation September 11th, 27. Elena opened the report. Her pulse quickened immediately. The mission involved undercover federal agents infiltrating an international weapons organization, Phoenix Circle. The operation failed after an internal betrayal exposed every agent involved. Most were executed publicly overseas, except one operative whose body was never recovered. Agent Daniel Voss. Elena stopped breathing. Her brother. Shaw looked away quietly. You knew. Yes. You told me he was undercover investigating police corruption. He was. Elena stood abruptly. That wasn't the whole truth. No, Shaw admitted. It wasn't. Anger exploded inside her. For years I thought he died because of local corruption. He did. You lied to me. Shaw raised his voice for the first time. Because they were still hunting him. Silence crashed into the room. Elena stared at him. Shaw continued, quietly now. Your brother infiltrated Phoenix Circle under federal orders. He uncovered politicians, police officials, judges, entire governments connected to them. Elena felt dizzy. And Raymond Hale protected Phoenix operations locally. The pieces finally connected together. Her brother discovered the weapons network. Hale exposed him. Victor Lang ordered the cleanup. Everything linked back to Phoenix Circle. Elena whispered slowly. My brother didn't die in a motorcycle crash. Shaw lowered his eyes. No, the truth hit harder than she expected. Not because of grief, because of betrayal. Her brother had fought alone while the government buried the truth. Then Elena noticed one final detail in the classified report. Status. Possible survivor. Her eyes widened instantly. What does this mean? Shaw looked uncomfortable. After the operation failed, intelligence suggested Daniel may have escaped briefly. Elena's heartbeat accelerated violently. You said he was murdered. We found his motorcycle. That's not the same thing. Shaw said nothing, and that silence changed everything, because for the first time in 11 years, Elena realized her brother might still be alive. Suddenly, alarms erupted across the operations room. Agents rushed between screens. One analyst shouted loudly, "We've got movement." Shaw turned immediately. "What happened?" The analyst pointed toward live traffic cameras. A convoy of black trucks sped through the industrial district. No plates, Phoenix symbols, and one truck matched the harbor footage exactly. Container X9. Elena grabbed her jacket instantly. Where are they headed? The analyst typed rapidly, then looked up in horror. The central train terminal. Shaw's face drained of color. Over 50,000 civilians pass through that station daily. If Phoenix Circle transported weapons there, the consequences would be catastrophic. Another analyst interrupted urgently. "We intercepted encrypted communication." "Play it." Static filled the room. Then a distorted voice spoke clearly. "Package arrives in 90 minutes. Prepare Phase 1. Every agent froze. Phase 1. Not delivery. Not transport. An operation. Elena looked at Shaw. "What's inside that container?" The old director answered with brutal honesty. "I'm afraid to find out." Outside, federal vehicles roared toward the city streets. Sirens screamed across the morning traffic. Helicopters lifted into the sky. And somewhere ahead of them, Victor Lang was preparing something far bigger than corruption, far bigger than weapons smuggling, something capable of changing the entire country. As Elena loaded ammunition into her pistol, one terrifying thought repeated in her mind again and again. What if the red ID card was never meant to expose a corrupt inspector? What if it marked her as the next target all along? Morning traffic flooded the city like a living river. Thousands of people moved through the central train terminal without noticing the danger approaching them. Businessmen rushed toward platforms. Tourists dragged heavy luggage. Children laughed near food stands, completely unaware. Above the crowded streets, federal helicopters cut across the cloudy sky. Inside one armored vehicle, Elena Voss loaded a fresh magazine into her pistol. Director Shaw sat opposite her reviewing tactical maps. "No direct assault inside the terminal," he warned. "We don't even know what's in container X9. Elena stared through the vehicle window. "We're running out of time." The convoy accelerated harder. Sirens echoed through intersections. Meanwhile, deep beneath the train terminal, Victor Lang stood inside an abandoned underground service tunnel. Concrete walls dripped with moisture. Old maintenance lights flickered overhead. Around him, armed Phoenix Circle operatives unloaded black cases from container X9 carefully, every movement precise. Disciplined, deadly. Victor checked his watch impatiently. A masked operative approached him. "The station above is full." "Good." "And the package?" Victor turned toward the center of the tunnel slowly. A large steel container sat surrounded by armed guards. Heavy electronic locks covered every side. Victor smiled faintly. "Open it." One operative entered a long security code. Hydraulic locks hissed loudly. Then the doors slowly opened. Inside sat not explosives, not weapons, but people, dozens of them, men and women wearing gray uniforms. Some injured, some terrified, some barely conscious. Elena's brother stood among them, Daniel Voss. Alive. Victor stepped closer calmly. "You survived longer than expected." Daniel glared at him through bruised eyes. "You already lost." Victor smiled. "No." He looked upward toward the busy terminal above them. "Today we begin again." Back above ground, Elena's convoy screeched to a halt outside the station entrance. Federal teams deployed instantly. Crowds panicked at the sight of armored agents. Shaw spoke into tactical comms rapidly. "Seal every exit." Elena scanned the building sharply. Too many civilians. Too many hiding places. Then her radio crackled. A weak voice emerged through static. "Elena." She froze instantly. Her pulse exploded. The voice continued weakly. Underground. Shaw looked at her sharply. "What is it?" Elena's eyes widened. "That's him." Without waiting, she sprinted toward the lower maintenance entrances beneath the terminal. Agents followed immediately. Deep underground, Daniel Voss struggled against restraints while Phoenix operatives prepared equipment nearby. Computer systems powered on. Encrypted servers activated. Victor watched everything calmly. One operative approached him quickly. Federal teams entered the station. Victor nodded slightly. Right on schedule. Daniel stared at him. What is this really about? Victor crouched beside him slowly. Governments are fragile, Daniel. You're insane. No, Victor replied softly. I'm practical. He gestured toward the underground servers. People obey whoever controls fear. Daniel noticed dozens of passports and identity files displayed across nearby monitors. Thousands of them. Then realization hit him. You're building sleeper networks. Victor smiled wider. Exactly. Phoenix, Circle wasn't merely trafficking weapons. They were transporting operatives, false identities, fake citizenships, deep cover infiltrators, entire nations compromised from within. And today's operation would activate Phase 1 worldwide. Suddenly alarms erupted across the tunnel. Victor's expression hardened. They're here. Gunfire exploded moments later. Federal agents stormed the lower corridors. Concrete dust filled the air. Phoenix operatives returned fire immediately. Chaos erupted underground. Elena moved through smoke-covered hallways with terrifying precision. One attacker appeared beside a maintenance door. 2 shots. Down instantly. Another operative emerged from behind electrical panels. Elena disarmed him brutally before continuing forward. Her mind focused on only one thing. Daniel, at the far end of the tunnel. Victor heard approaching footsteps. Fast. Determined. He smiled slightly. Elena. Seconds later, she emerged through smoke, holding her pistol steady. Their eyes locked instantly. Victor stood calmly beside the open steel container. You finally found the truth. Elena barely noticed him, because behind him, Daniel stood alive, bruised, exhausted, but alive. For several seconds, the world disappeared around her. Gunfire faded. Shouting vanished. Only her brother remained. Daniel smiled weakly. Hey, sis. Elena's eyes filled instantly for the first time in years. You idiot. Victor slowly stepped between them. I wouldn't get emotional yet. Elena aimed directly at his head. It's over. Victor looked genuinely amused. You still think arrests matter? He pressed a small remote device casually. Every monitor in the tunnel suddenly activated. News broadcasts appeared worldwide. Financial systems, transportation networks, government databases. Then warning messages flashed everywhere simultaneously. Phase 1 active. Shaw's voice exploded through Elena's earpiece. Elena, stop him now. Victor backed away slowly. You expose corruption, he said calmly. But Phoenix Circle was never about corruption. The tunnel lights flickered red. Emergency systems activated. Victor smiled one final time. It was about replacement. Then he pressed the remote again. Suddenly explosions thundered through nearby corridors. The entire tunnel shook violently. Concrete collapsed between Elena and Victor instantly. Smoke consumed everything. Elena! Daniel shouted. She coughed through debris and reached forward desperately. But Victor Lang had vanished. Again. Emergency alarms screamed overhead now. The station began evacuating civilians rapidly. Shaw reached the tunnel moments later with tactical teams. Move. Move. Agents freed prisoners from the steel container, while engineers stabilized collapsing walls. Elena helped Daniel walk toward the exit carefully. You're really alive, she whispered. Daniel smiled weakly. Barely. Outside the station, panic flooded the streets. But the attack everyone feared never came. No bombs. No massacre. Instead, something far stranger happened. Across the world, intelligence agencies simultaneously uncovered hidden Phoenix Circle operatives embedded inside governments, corporations, and security agencies. Thousands of arrests began within hours. Victor's activation signal accidentally exposed the entire network. He tried launching a global infiltration phase, but triggered global exposure instead. Phoenix Circle collapsed overnight. News channels called it the largest international security breach in modern history. And at the center of everything stood one story. A corrupt inspector tearing up a woman's license inside a rainy cafe. That single moment started the chain reaction that destroyed an underground empire. Weeks later, the city slowly returned to normal. Corrupt officials disappeared. Trials continued. Federal investigations expanded worldwide. Raymond Hale accepted a life sentence quietly after testifying against Phoenix Circle leadership. But Victor Lang remained missing. No body, no confirmed sighting, only rumors. Some claimed he escaped overseas. Others believed Phoenix Circle eliminated him themselves. Nobody knew the truth. One evening, Elena and Daniel stood together beside the Riverside Bridge where she once released his photograph into the wind. The city lights reflected softly across the water. Daniel leaned against the railing carefully. "You really thought I was dead?" "For 11 years. He looked down quietly. "I wanted to contact you." "What stopped you?" Daniel's expression darkened. "Anyone connected to me became a target." Elena nodded slowly. She finally understood. The silence, the disappearances, the fear. Daniel looked toward her with a faint smile. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "All this started because one arrogant inspector laughed at the wrong woman." Elena laughed softly for the first time in years. A real laugh, peaceful. Then Daniel reached into his coat and handed her something small, a red ID card. Elena stared at it silently. "You kept it?" "It saved both of us." Wind moved gently across the river. Far away, police sirens echoed faintly through the city night. But for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt afraid. And somewhere in the darkness, one final truth remained unforgettable. Power built on fear always believes it's untouchable. Until one brave person refuses to kneel.